Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnson and welcome to The Interesting Times, a show that looks and laughs at UK politics. So, it's been a bit of a weird week. In a run-up to Christmas, the stories are all a little bit, well, weird. Or in some cases, well, weird. Okay, let me go through what's been happening and see if you don't feel the same way. So, first of all, Kemi Badenoch at PMQs on Wednesday had her choice about what she could take on the government at. And with the farmers so close to where they were, you could smell the fertiliser outside Parliament as much as listen to it inside. But Kemi's never one for the obvious and decided instead to go with immigration. Really?
Let's talk about immigration.
Yeah.
He has relaunched yet again. Many new targets, 6 milestones, 5 missions, but why was cutting immigration not a priority?
Speaker, I'm glad she now wants to talk about immigration. Last week she said she didn't, and for good reason, because the previous government presided over record high levels of immigration. The figures just a few weeks ago, nearly 1 million on net migration. That is unprecedented.
That was always going to be Starmer's answer. Where does she get her questions from? Because it sounds like she's trying to fight July's election again. Spoiler alert, Kemi, it didn't work out well for your party. And whenever there's this discussion on immigration, all the talk is of what immigrants cost us, rather than what they bring. Luckily, the government was on hand to spread the positive message of immigration. Just not our government.
Immigrants build nations and immigrants build civilizations. One of the men in the front seat here has a thriving business in Namibia. He lived in Australia for over a decade, adding value to the Australian economy. Hence, there is a need for us to respect and cherish immigrants. Migrants are the source of life in all societies.
That was the wise words of Deputy Prime Minister of Nigeria, and he's not happy with Kemi.
Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the British Labour or Conservative Party. We are proud of her, in spite of her efforts at denigrating her nation of origin. She is entitled to her own opinions. She has even every right to remove the Kemi from her name. But that does not underscore the fact that the greatest black nation on earth is the nation called Nigeria.
Think Wakanda would have something to say about that. Look, don't take it personally, Nigeria. She's leader of the Conservatives now, and they've got a brand to protect, namely slagging off all other countries that aren't the UK or US under Trump, especially if it's a country where the indigenous people aren't white. Yes, before you said, I know Kemi Badenoch isn't white, but I'm not entirely sure she does. So you're probably thinking, okay, Matt, that's odd, but normal for the Tories. Where's the weird you promised us? Well, Kemi then did an interview with The Spectator where she was keen to lay out her credentials for the top job. She said that lunch was for wimps, and if she wants to eat, someone will bring her food. Yes, lunch is for wimps. Far better to be one of those self-sufficient toughies that has their snacks brought to them. She went on to say sandwiches aren't food. They are. And they're what you have for breakfast. They're not. And she doesn't eat bread if it's moist. If she doesn't like wet things, how come she's sitting next to Chris Philp here? All of this talk of food, sandwiches, breakfast, and I believe I've just spotted Dick.
Working lunch today, cheese and pickle sandwich. Proper job.
Typical Farage there, going for the veggie option like some sort of woke snowflake. Although cheese is definitely his thing, I thought he might have included some ham-fisted attempts to campaign for Brexit, or some turkeys that have voted for Brexit, or some too chicken to have another referendum on EU membership. But obviously no gammon, he's not a cannibal, or washed down with a milkshake or two. In other news, the farmers were out in force in Westminster protesting, well, quite a few things actually.
Probably seen farming is in the news at the moment. You might be fooled into thinking it's all about inheritance tax, but actually, talk to any farmers and there's a lot of other things going on. One of the big stories here is the UK has left the EU, and that means a big change in the way that farmers are getting paid. What you'll notice is, look, The old EU-style farm payments, the black bits, they're being phased out gradually over time, and it's the green bits, the environmental payments, that are growing, and by 2027, that's going to be 100%. This is showing you how much rain, basically, we have had in the last winter. The darker this is, darker blue the bits are here, the more rain versus the historical average. It was really difficult to grow wheat in particular. It was the second lowest tonnage of wheat, so the second worst harvest, basically, for wheat since 1984. Those lines shot up. So that's food coming into the UK from overseas. It's more competition for domestic farm. And this is showing you the amount of wheat that comes out of each hectare of land. That makes it even more difficult for those who are farming the land to try and grow more stuff. So put it all together, all of that and the Brexit changes and trade changes and what's going on with the weather, and perhaps it's no surprise that people are talking about Farmageddon.
Add to that an ageing workforce, some of the worst mental health issues in the country, and if we're not careful, we could all be looking at shifting the excess holiday flab a lot sooner than we'd like. And Farage, ever keen to spot a bandwagon to hop on, put on his flat cap, green wellies, and vocationally appropriated the farmers like a fast show throwback, making the size of the tractor protest rather small compared to Farage's security. Expecting trouble, Nige? But reform do seem to be making inroads into the two-party system. Here is GB News reporter and last of the Goonies, Matt Goodwin.
And the political landscape in Britain is undergoing a seismic, perhaps historic shift, with Nigel Farage and Reform UK emerging as a formidable political force that's now reshaping the traditional two-party system. The media class, which often moves as a pack, is clearly starting to give Farage and Reform the kind of neutral or even positive coverage that would have been unthinkable in years gone by. Throughout the 2000s and the 2010s, Nigel Farage was either portrayed as a clown to be laughed at or as a serious threat to democracy.
Can't he be both? Laughing at the ridiculous system Nigel Farage is important. I like to think of it as a public service. You're welcome. But there is no doubt that he is starting to spread his toxic appeal. And with the Labour government losing popularity as they attempt to fix 14 years of Tory rule, and the Tories blaming Labour for the Tories' 14 years of rule, Reform could find a home for the politically homeless. Let me put it this way. Do you remember when Cameron called that referendum into the EU? Great job, Dave. Before Reform were Reform, before they were the Brexit Party, they were UKIP. And gathering votes and making the Tories so nervous, Cameron said, go on then, let's have a referendum. That'll shut you up. Well, then they were on 3.5 million votes. At the general election this summer, they picked up over 4 million, more than the Liberal Democrats. Now, of course, they have only one policy, namely, blah, 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 immigration is bad and responsible for all our ills. But if you invite the lie in, it'll plonk itself down on your couch while putting its completely green, never been near a farm green wellies on your coffee table. Before you can tell it, you pissed in their coffee. Cheers. But there is a way to combat this. You see, cockroaches don't like the light. Excuse me, sorry. Quick technical issue. Lighting? Check. Sound? Check. Background? Check. Oh, oops. Oh well. Never mind, Nigel. The law isn't everything. This is the news that journalists at Sky are starting to do their job. You know, that whole ask tricky questions that get to the truth, even if it makes the subject feel just a little bit uncomfortable. James McMurdoch is a Reform MP who has served time for repeatedly assaulting his girlfriend and not disclosing it when he became an MP, which legally he doesn't have to do as it's a spent conviction. But morally, he and the Reform Party shouldn't be lying about it by saying he didn't kick her when court records clearly show otherwise. And Beth Rigby, with Nigel Farage, followed a fairly direct form of questioning.
But for the victim, for him to imply that she was pushed over when the court document says he kicked her, that's difficult for the victim, isn't it?
I'll believe anything you say.
It's not what I say, it's what the court document says.
I haven't read
it's not what I said, it's a court
document. I don't know, it's 20 years ago. And this is why, and this is why the mainstream media like you are losing the affections of the British public.
Yeah, mainstream media news outlets with their rigorous fact-checking. They could do a lot worse than take a leaf out of GB News' book. and have journalists that nod along to everything Nigel says and give him his very own show on the channel and invite other guests on to say how brilliant he is. Richard Tice was then quizzed by Sophie Ridge, and he took a more pious approach.
We are a great Christian nation. Are you seriously saying that if someone makes a bad mistake in life, age 19, that there's no redemption, they are doomed as a sinner forever? No. The whole point of Christianity is a sense of, if you've done something wrong, you pay your price, and at the end of that sentence, whatever it is, then, in a sense, you've done your bit.
Exactly. We don't want all those Middle Eastern religions being forced on the British people. We are a Christian country. Although knowing this new woke nonsense, they'll be telling us Jesus wasn't white next. Nigel, who, true story, has stopped going to his local Church of England in March this year. Now, if you're thinking this was over the cover-up of the abuse of children in the 70s and 80s, then you haven't really got a handle on Farage's full-on fact-free type of fascism, because he actually left the church because they had gone too woke. Of course, particularly the PC New Testament with their loving thy neighbour and providing a home to those in need rubbish. The Old Testament was a lot more common sense and straightforward, no nonsense there, just Adam, Eve and a talking snake. It's not too surprising Farage has turned his back on the church's teachings though. It is kind of hard to make the case against evolution when you're literally right next to the evidence of it. It has been a rather bizarre week. But what may have slipped under the radar is Sir Keir's EU reset, as he's attempting to turn off and then on again our relationship with the EU. Hugely significant so that we don't become the doormat to the American blubber in a straw toupee from over the pond. It will mean closer alignment to the EU's trading policies. Although not rejoining the single market, this will or should go some way to undoing the damage of Boris's oven-ready, undercooked, laced with salmonella deal. Something that'll help with the cost of living crisis, which seems to be going on forever. A good thing, you would think. But then, you're not GB News.
And leaked documents have revealed the European Union is going to demand from Keir Starmer a surrender of UK fishing rights.
Brexiteers, and perhaps even those who didn't vote for Brexit, fearing that it betrays the results of the 2016 referendum.
They want to kind of bring the UK back to heel. Let's be real, even in this document, they were saying that, Keir Starmer's Turkey is stuffed. The language is already hostile. They're like, you need us, and like...
You need us more than we need you, cheeky buggers. That's our unhelpful catchphrase. Well, betrayal and surrender are pretty strong words there. And how would Brexit voters react to this? Let's ask, GB News.
A new poll has found that the majority of Brexit voters would accept a return to free movement with the European Union in exchange for access to the single market.
Oh, well, now I'm really confused. What's going on? Well, we're effectively not rejoining the single market, but we're not joining the single market. Basically, this is about getting extra fishing quotas in for UK fishermen for 2025. And that's it. So far, it seems we are joining the EU one single market at a time. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you have enjoyed these vids, then please feel free to like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.